food, so an average person has just under 5,000 kilograms of CO2 emitted into the atmosphere per year based on their diet, based on the food they eat. The average vegan in Canada has a carbon footprint of um, 1.5 or 150,000, no, 1,500 kilograms of CO2 per year, which is about a third of the CO2 that a regular person, average person, would put out into the atmosphere due to their diet. And this is mainly because you're not eating meat or animal products. So 1 kilogram of beef produces 13.3 kilograms of CO2, while 1 kilogram of vegetables only produces 1 kilogram of CO2. And that is not including the fact that vegetables are plants, and when they're a plant, they're actually going to remove CO2 and emit oxygen. So there's some benefit there. And then um, when it comes to like ripening and transportation, all that, that's where you have some CO2 that's getting emitted. So that's why it's a net loss or a net, you're emitting CO2. It's because you have to transport it and ripen it generally. If we look at milk as well, for 1 liter of milk, it's about 1.25 kilograms of CO2, where 1 liter of almond milk produces 0.28 kilograms of CO2. And so I'm looking at food here just at CO2 emissions, and there's other things to consider if you're looking at like the environment as a whole. But if you're looking at just climate change, CO2 is the main thing you want to look at. If you're looking at the environment as a whole, with almond milk, it needs a lot of water to produce, and sometimes water isn't available, and it's not great for the environment to be using a ton of water. So there's other things to consider if you're looking at environmental impact. If you're looking at just climate change impact, CO2 is the main thing to consider. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should go vegan because I still occasionally eat meat. But what can really help is look at your diet and try to reduce the amount of high CO2 emitting foods you buy. So maybe instead of eating beef every day, once a week, once a month. So you can look at like pork and chicken produce a lot less CO2 than beef does, just based on the animals. And even some of the vegetables or some of the milk products you buy. Just look, you can even just like Google it, like, oh, let's say carrots, how much CO2 does carrots emit? And you can look at what food you're buying and try to reduce the ones that are the highest at emitting CO2. Another way you can do this is by buying local food. So the less food has to travel, the better it is for the environment, meaning you are emitting less CO2, but also you're supporting local businesses, which is always good. And then you can also look at food that has less plastic around it. So by reducing your amount of plastic, you're reducing the amount of waste, which is great for the environment, as well as you're reducing some of the CO2 that needs to make that plastic or deal with the waste. So whenever you have garbage truck has to come drive by, that's CO2 emitting, has to go to the dump. And then I don't know, I haven't looked in the process of plastic being recycled, how much CO2 is emitted there, but I'm guessing there's some CO2 emitted, as kind of with most things. So reduce how much waste you have will go a long way to reducing your carbon footprint as well. So now let's look at purchases. So every time you buy something new, you're increasing your carbon footprint. So a new t-shirt, that's going to be just to produce that t-shirt is 2 kilograms of CO2 before you wear it. So if you buy a used t-shirt or go to the thrift shop, you're going to be saving that CO2. And this is amplified for denim jeans. So if you buy used jeans, you're saving about 15 kilograms of CO2 by just buying used jeans instead of new jeans. And I guess sometimes this isn't practical. And then this is with like, let's say what's a good example? Your TV breaks. What you can do is you can try to repair your TV instead of just going out and buying a new one, or just throwing your TV out. Or if you have like a smaller TV, let's say you have a 40-inch TV and you really want a 60-inch TV. You can think about, okay, do I really need that bigger TV? Is it really going to make a benefit in my life to have a bigger TV? Am I happy with the 40-inch TV I have? So trying to reduce what you buy and reuse things that can be reused will go a long way to not only saving the environment by reducing the amount of CO2 emitted, but also saves you money, which is always a good thing to have. So currently, just because I like saving money, most of the clothes I'll buy are at the thrift store, and you can find pretty good things. You just gotta look. Um, so you can reduce your carbon footprint by not buying as much new items and by trying to reuse items or looking on like Facebook Marketplace for used items that people don't want anymore. And generally, you can find some pretty good things there. Okay, so let's look quickly at how you can influence change in cooperation. I was going to do a whole section on how you can vote, and then I realized you can't vote yet. You got maybe like 2 or 3 years, 2 years, 3 years. I mind that. So it might be a while before you can vote. But being able, once you have your vote, it's a powerful thing. You should, if climate change is important to you, vote where, vote for people that are going to make an impact in climate change. So your vote matters, even though it might seem like it doesn't. If more and more people start looking at climate change as a more important factor, then more people are going to vote that way, and people that are more aggressive in climate change will get put into more power, and then federal policy will come out, or provincial policy will come out that's trying to limit the amount of CO2 emitted or amount of waste being used. Another thing that you can do right now is your buying power. So your buying power is hugely important. So that is pretty much what you buy and how much you buy. So your buying power, if people put their buying power together, as you probably can see on like Instagram or Twitter, when companies get some public backlash and people start saying, "Oh, I'm not going to buy there." That's them using their buying power to hurt companies. So you can do that for companies that are not great for the environment. You can stop buying from them, and they're no longer going to be profitable if people stop buying from companies that aren't good for the environment. And then you have companies that are good for the environment. You can buy from them and say, "Okay, I'm going to use my buying power on the company that's good for the environment, so that companies that are good for the environment are going to be more profitable, and companies that are bad for the environment are going to be less profitable, forcing all the companies to be good for the environment." And sometimes it's tricky to figure out what company is good for the environment, because a lot of companies will do, I think it's called greenwashing, where they say, "Oh yeah, we're great for the environment," and then don't really do the things they're saying they do. So you got to be careful what companies are truly good. But it just takes a bit of research. So using your buying power can really change what companies are profitable. And if it's not profitable, likely there won't be any companies doing it. So if we want climate change, if we want companies and industry to really look at climate change as important, we need to use our buying power. And just a note on that is that if everybody did their part, everybody really reduced their carbon footprint, we would still have ways to go, because industry and companies are the largest producers of CO2 and largest reason that climate change is accelerating so fast is all these industries that are producing so much CO2. So really, it's there that we really need to start changing the way we do things and changing the thought process around how we produce things. And that's not going to change unless we use our buying power to make a change. So there's lots of other ways we can use, we can reduce our carbon footprint. So I showed this link here. There's like 25, 26, 27 different ways that are broken down into categories. I found them interesting. One of the greatest ways you can reduce your carbon footprint apparently is not owning a private jet. So don't go out and buy a private jet. There you go. If you have one already, maybe sell it. Um, so like I said at the bottom here, if everybody does their part, we can get closer to this 50% reduction goal, but we won't get there just by everybody doing their part. We need companies and corporations to make a change. So that was the lesson today. Hope everybody had a good day, and I'll see you next time.